24-year-old mother of two named Nova Welsh disappeared July 1st, 1981, in Birmingham, England. Nobody found out what had happened to her until 3 weeks later, when her decomposing body was found inside a storage cabinet in her own home. The investigators began their investigation, but it would take them 36 years to make progress while the Nova's murderer was still in plain sight. So, who was this individual? How and why did they decide to kill Nova? If you're a new visitor, we appreciate it if you would consider subscribing, as it would inspire us to continue producing exciting content for you. Birmingham, an English city in the West Midlands metropolitan area with a population of more than 1 million, will be the site of our study today. It is the second largest city in the United Kingdom. Birmingham is well known for its heritage in the food and culinary industries, legendary rock music, and vibrant nightlife, in addition to its manufacturing background. Birmingham is also known as the City of Thousand Trades. Nova was not the only child. She had a younger sister named Valerie. Nova was born in Jamaica in 1957. When Nova was 10 years old, her mother, Lorna Welsh, decided to emigrate to the UK in search of better opportunities. According to her new best friend, Lorna Edmund, Nova was a nice person who was always joyful and smiling. It was a difficult choice because it meant leaving behind the people and surroundings she had grown to love. Nevertheless, she was adamant about leaving. Osmond Bell, a young boy around her age, was someone Nova met and fell in love with when she was about 16 years old. Maybe love was all that blinded Nova, or maybe she just wanted to be independent. But a few months later, she let her mother know that she and Osmond had made the decision to start living together and that she intended to leave home. They welcomed their first child and called him Jonathan. They had a second son whom they named Lee 4 years later. Nova was a loving mother to her young kids, and she cared for them deeply so that they could support themselves and their offspring. The pair chose separate occupations. Nova had a part-time cleaning job. Osmond was a builder, and everything appeared to be moving along fairly smoothly. But, regrettably, nothing would remain the same. The bond between Nova and Osmond eventually started to fray. The initial chemistry between them that had been present gradually vanished. As a result, the couple started fighting more frequently. Their flat was located in the Ladywood neighborhood, and neighbors frequently heard the pair's loud disputes. Occasionally, their arguments turned violent, and Osmond punched her, leaving bruises on her body. With each day that passes, Nova's relationship grew more and more miserable, and she confided in Valerie, her younger sister, as well as a few close friends, about what she was going through. She ultimately convinced us to give love a second chance with someone else. She met Wayne Newby in May 1981, and they eventually started dating. As their relationship progressed, Wayne occasionally paid her a visit at her home. Osmond found this upsetting, and it gave him more justification to argue with Nova. Sister Sonia paid her a brief visit in June 1981 while staying in Nova Steps. Sonia saw one of their arguments, and she admitted her disinterest in the relationship with Osmond. He, despite her successful ending, was not ready to let her go. On that specific day, Sonia heard a scream coming from the kitchen while she was in the living room. She immediately hurried to the kitchen to find out what was wrong because the voice was clearly that of a Nova. What she noticed terrified her. Osmond was standing irately over Nova as she lay on the ground, his hands wrapped in a dish towel. Sonia made it plain she was going to call the police in the moments that followed, but Osmond tried to talk her out of it. Later, when police officers showed up at the residence, when they inquired as to what had occurred, Nova was the one to respond. They were informed about her and Osmond's argument and her request for him to leave the house. She never told authorities that the real cause of the argument the night before was because she had gone out and Osmond had not been happy about it. When she returned from her outing, he had confronted her, and things had gotten worse from there, with him grabbing her by the neck and attempting to choke her. Osmond left the house without a fight, and after packing his things, the officers went to where he was and spoke with him. Nova felt a sense of relief and knew that, from that point on, things would get less intense. She was right. She was free to spend more time with her lover Wayne as irate Osmond was gone now, and she didn't have to worry about running. She felt like a teenager in love again with Wayne, and they were in love, and she thought that taking them over would be a good opportunity for the boys to build their bond with their father after she had left them off at Osmond's place. The following morning, July 25, 1981, Carmen and Wendell Turner, who lived in the apartment below Nova's, were awakened by a disturbance emanating from Nova's apartment above. It was the recognizable sound of an argument which they had many times before. A neighbor saw Nova and would later report to the police that she appeared visibly upset about something. On the same evening, nearly 7 hours later, at around 12:30 a.m., Wendell heard a loud bang from above as they wondered what or who could have made such a loud bang in the middle of the night. A second bang, and one in particular, sounded like a door being kicked. At that time, Nova, Mother Lorna, and Sister Valerie had moved permanently from the United Kingdom to Miami, Florida, hoping that Nova would eventually follow with her 2 children. When they arrived in Miami, they tried to contact Nova but were unsuccessful. Valerie Welsh said, "We were trying to contact her to let her know we had landed safely, but we were never able to obtain a response." Best friend, Lorna, was one of the first to notice Nova was missing. She knew that her friend's refusal to answer the phone and extended absence were out of character for her, but she is convinced that everything that was happening had a real purpose. Lorna decided to visit Nova to find out what was happening, but when she arrived at Nova's flat, no matter how loudly she pounded or yelled Nova's name, she was unable to enter since the door was locked. Following Osmond's assurance that he had not seen Nova and that their 2 children were with him, Lorna called the police and reported her friend missing in order to calm her fears and, as a last resort. This occurred on August 9, 1981, 2 weeks after Nova vanished mysteriously. Police officers started looking for her right away. Her close friends were contacted, but none of them remembered seeing her. Osmond was also contacted and questioned about when he last saw her and why he hadn't reported her missing sooner. Osmond responded by saying that he believed she had left with her new partner or traveled to America with her family. The 12th of August, 1981, Lorna discovered a letter in her mailbox 3 days after she reported Nova missing. She initially believed it to be from a relative. She understood she was mistaken after opening the seal and reading the contents. The letter claimed that the author's partner had witnessed Nova fighting with a man she had been out with just before she vanished. Lorna was perplexed since she had no idea who had written the letter, because the author had decided to stay anonymous, but she could tell from what she had read that the author was a female. The letter alleges that the man grabbed and hit Nova. Lorna didn't spend any time presenting the letter to the police. Following a review of the letter, officers concentrate on Wayne because he was the person Nova had been dating prior to going missing. When questioned, Wayne claims he had no idea where Nova was or had gone. August 18th, 1981. Nova's neighbor called the police to look into a foul smell that was permeating the entire house. Nobody was quite sure what it smelled like, but it was extremely uncomfortable and unsettling for everyone. When police officers arrived at the scene, they quickly realized that Nova's apartment's upstairs was where the scent was the worst. They quickly broke down the door after realizing it was locked. The apartment had stairs, and beneath them was a cupboard. Officers noticed that the smell was particularly strong in one area of the residence, which drew their attention. Strangely, the moment the officers unlocked it, a chewing gum stick had been used to secure the cupboard door, which appeared to be broken. They discovered the wretched body. The news of Nova's passing quickly spread like wildfire throughout the neighborhood. Additionally, her family in Miami was contacted and made aware of what had occurred. They cried for days because they were devastated. According to the results of the autopsy that was performed on her body, Nova had died as a result of pressure on the neck. Detectives started an inquiry right away to find out how Nova had died. The detectives put Osmond at the top of their list of suspects because they thought he was suspicious. He was therefore detained. During the 4 days he was detained, he was subjected to a series of interrogations, but the investigators were unable to extract any useful information from him. He was also asked if he knew anything about the enigmatic message that Lorna had received. He admitted to them that he was unaware of the letter. He was permitted to leave the station because there was no longer a need to keep him there. Detectives kept looking into Nova's death after this, and even went so far as to query the public for information. However, they received nothing, and the case was closed. Soon after, Nova was laid to rest, and life continued. But her family continued to feel the pain she caused by passing away. They pondered her murderer for a very long time. As time passed, the field of forensic science evolved. Complex DNA procedures that were unthinkable at the time of Nova's death became feasible because of technological advancements. Detectives made the decision to re-examine the case in 2014. This time, their attention was drawn to the chewing gum that had been used to seal the cabinet where Nova's body had been discovered. The detectives were confident that the gum would contain the DNA of whoever had used it to hold the cupboard door in place because it had been preserved over the years. They assumed that whoever it was, probably responsible for killing Nova. Soon after they underwent the test, DNA was obtained. Further examination revealed that it was a match for none other than Osmond. DNA testing was conducted on more than just the gum. Also submitted to the lab for analysis was the letter seal, which Luna had received back in 1981. DNA from Osmond was also discovered on it. This could only suggest that he wrote the letter to deflect attention from himself. With the strong evidence, detectives knew they had captured Osmond at last. He was quickly taken further questioning after the arrest. Osmond insisted on his innocence, and even provided explanations for why his DNA might be found on the gum and letter seal. He claimed that he had operated a laundry service in the past and periodically utilized the cabinet where Nova's body was discovered. He had used the gum to retain the broken cupboard lock in position within the letter. When he was being questioned for the murder in 1981, he claimed to have come into contact with it. I do remember being locked in a room with a letter and envelope on a table, thinking at the time, perhaps I'm being watched, and they didn't enter again until I picked up the letter and started reading it. Then I put it on the desk. Since Osmond insisted repeatedly that he had nothing to do with Nova's death, and his DNA had not appeared on the letter, the case eventually went to trial. Osmond explained how this happened. He was found not guilty of murder after a 6-week trial because there was no proof the crime was premeditated. He was nonetheless found guilty of manslaughter and given a 12-year prison term. The judgment was delivered March 22, 2017. Family members of Nova were pleased with the trial's verdict. After 36 arduous years, Nova can finally rest in peace. The family can now find solace in the knowledge that the individual who took the life was punished. Osmond's actions were pardoned by the family, according to Nova's sister, Valerie, and mother, Lorna. We forgive him, but he must still make amends for his actions. Valerie, Nova's best friend, who also expressed relief that her killer had been apprehended, claimed that he had never acknowledged doing so. The fact that Nova's killer was finally found guilty brings some comfort, despite the tragedy of her case when all the evidence pointed to Osmond as the murderer. Did he still refuse to accept responsibility for his actions? Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section.